So let's casual gaming. So let's casual gaming. So let's casual gaming. So let's casual gaming.
Hello, you are listening to Thoughtless Casual Gaming with Brett and Jace. We are a Geelong-based gaming podcast where we play games badly and then talk shit about them. Today, we are joining you. This is a couple of days after we had an event.
It was eventful,
Yep.
to say the absolute least.
On the weekend, part of Throw the Dice's All Systems Go, we were one of the 5 games played this weekend, and we looked after the Blood Bowl side of things. So did our usual thing, ran a little sevens event. So if you're at all interested in Blood Bowl, keep listening. If you're not, probably not the episode for
I
you.
mean, keep listening anyway. Like, don't let me discourage you, but also be fully aware what you're signing up for here. This treated, the good thing here I'm thinking about it being an event and eventful, and the fact we were playing Blood Bowl, particularly sevens, is we kicked off at like 10 o'clock, right?
Which is
Some-
after the 2 games that were on with us.
Some of those players were up early enough to see the event horizon.
Yeah, so we were on the same day as 40K and Lord of the Rings. 2 games which are
Yeah.
considerably
Longer.
longer than sevens.
But it was like cool. Just as a concept, though, we had the 3 games going on, different schedules, different times, different everything, different TOs, all in the same big sort of open hall space. So there was a lot of kind of stuff going on. There was, when you weren't playing games, you could go and just see what other stuff was happening. You could go heckle, mates playing different systems because they chose the wrong one. All that kind of jazz. So it was actually a pretty cool, and feedback I got was, hey, this is actually a pretty cool format. This is, we like being around more than just the Blood Bowl.
Yes. Look, we had quite a few onlookers throughout the day. Quite a few comments about the setup that we had with the sevens mats and all that sort of stuff going. Quite a few people dropping by, grabbing some TCG dice, which was kind of nice. So yeah, that was a good little day.
It's cool. And look, and it probably, kind of helpful that we literally split the hall down the middle. So you had 40Ks and all their tables up one side, you had Lord of the Rings and all their tables up the other side, and literally in a line down between them, we were the great divide between those 2 systems. So we had 7, we had 8, but we had 7 tables running in a line literally between them, which worked really, really well, because it means people could kind of run up and down and have a look at different teams, different games, and see what was going on. To get from one side of the hall to the other, you've literally had to go past and potentially around. So I think it worked rather well.
I think so. And kudos to Rich from Throw the Dice for not only putting it all together, but delivering on his promises, really. It was a great little weekend, and I'm sure that everybody that came along and had a look had a bit of fun.
Yeah, super cool. But importantly, we ran some Blood Bowl.
We did.
We ran some Blood Bowl sevens, which is even better.
So, shall we get into the teams?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, we had, I said, 14 players on the day, but that was after a couple of people had life happen, as is always the way. So there are a couple of dropouts. I haven't taken them out of the team stuff or any of the info I had, but this is based on who intended on coming.
Yep.
More than anything. So we had total of 16 rosters submitted. I had 13. Is that right? Yes, I did have 13 teams out of 16 rosters represented. So that was a really good spread
Yep.
as a starting point. I was really happy with that. And, a bit of a shift. So the Players Pack had different amounts that you could spend depending on the tiering of your team. And there was a bit of a spread between the different tiers as well, which was nice to see.
Yeah.
So
With the tiers too, we mostly stuck to the GW tiers. I think we upped Necro because they've won the last couple with us.
yeah,
I think it was the main change.
I think it didn't really change much at all. And then, as I said, you basically had more money, so we let people buy primary skills. Basically, one per player, 20k per skill, and you could spend your cash, of which you had more if you were on a lower tier, on players, positions, or skills,
or inducements.
Or inducements. That's a legitimate thing as well. So anyway, we had, out of those 16 rosters submitted, we had one Chaos Renegade. That actually has got me thinking, but anyway, just the extra cash that's an extra big guy, which is the correct way to play Renegades. Let's be honest.
It's the only reason
they're
to play them.
They're one of the mixed teams that probably doesn't suffer as much in sevens, because usually the joy of them is the extra positions that you can mix and match out of. But I feel like you get enough of the good stuff in sevens with Renegades, so that's not too bad. But anyway, one of them. What else? Nurgle. They were, unfortunately, one of the drops was the Nurgle roster. I was really keen to see how they ran. Some Dark Elves, Amazons. This was using the old or the current the roster,
because the new
We're
rules
still-
aren't even out yet.
still eagerly awaiting to see what they do, what position they create, so everybody who's made a third-party team has to quickly come up with another model. Elven Union. A Lizardman. There was a Lizardman roster.
That was yours.
It was mine. There was a Toon King.
Mm-hmm.
There was Corn, which was my other drop. Again, I was super keen to see what the frenzy would do, and I had a Bloodspawn with Break Tackle in there, which I was pretty excited to see. Some Chaos Dwarves, which we haven't seen in sevens yet, so that was going to be an interesting one. 2 Imperial Nobility, 2 Skaven, surprise, and 2 Goblins. And we might have gone to 3 Skaven, actually, now I think about it.
Yes, we did.
We did go to 3 Skaven. This is clearly slightly after. I had one more roster in there.
Yeah, so Skaven, obviously the most popular choice for the day.
Yes.
And yeah, 2 Imperial Nobility, 2 Goblins. But overall, a good mix, bit of everything. I'm just trying to think if there was any team types that I would have liked to have seen, but no, I think that's pretty overall.
No, look, couple of stunties, a couple of tier 3s, I feel like, and this is maybe starting to see where sevens leans, right? But there wasn't a couple of those bashier teams. There wasn't a Chaos Chosen at all, as an example. There's a few of those that would have been interesting to see, but realistically, good mix.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, as a good mix of teams, a couple of usual suspects. I'm not massively surprised there. 3 of the 4 elf varieties. There wasn't a bog standard humans, but who's missing them really? Yeah, I'd take that any day of the week.
It wasn't an Underworlds team either.
No. They're probably one of the mixed race. Oh, they kind of... Nah, they're not as fun. I mean, you still get what? Troll, Gutter Runner, Blitzer, something. Goblins.
Filled with goblins.
Yeah. Nah, not the worst.
No. Definitely not. Definitely. I mean, they're one of the most popular, I believe, overseas, but I don't think we've seen an awful lot of them around here for a while.
No.
Not for a season or two, anyway. But yeah, so
Well-
16 teams, Corn and Nurgle, two of the teams I desperately wanted to see did drop out, which left us on 14 players for the day, which, being an even number, meant that Jace couldn't play his Lizards.
I was so excited. I was anyway. We will move on. No, look, absolutely fair. Like, life happens. So, not at all begrudging people. I was, waiting to see if someone else had car troubles on the way there, to see if there was a chance to jump in. But that is the fun of organising these things. I'd much rather that than give someone a buy round. That wouldn't have been fun.
Not at all.
So then we come to the skills. Interesting. So, I mean, most people, like almost everybody, right, basically filled up their roster, their kind of almost basic 600k roster, and then chucked in a skill or two.
Mm-hmm.
I think we averaged about 3 skills per team. With some notable exceptions. For example, the Chaos Renegades decided to spend all that juicy cash on another big guy.
Fair.
Correct, in every sense of the word.
I mean, you buy one big guy, it gives you about 4 or 5 skills in itself.
Yeah. So there was a big, and look, realistically, we only allowed primary skills, which I think was a nice change from the last one, because we did not get the leader spam. I think we only got a couple of leaders, maybe 2 leaders. And then, so we didn't get that. We got the standard block dodge in spades. So there was like about 14 block options taken, which almost doubled the next most popular. I think dodge and guard at like 7 and 8 times they were taken. And then a really good mix between, sure hands, great, every day of the week. Kick.
I love kick.
Yes.
Absolutely.
In 7s too.
It is such a good skill. Like, even 11s, it's my go-to first skill pick, because it just gives you so much more control.
Yeah, and when you've got space between you, you can play really offensively, really hard. If you get a nice scatter on the ball, it's juicy. What else do we have that was interesting? There were a couple of the teams that dropped were the ones I was excited about. The break tackle Bloodspawn, as I mentioned, would have been super fun. We did have a Nurgle bloater with tentacles.
Also would have been fun.
That would have been juicy to watch. Particularly, it had that, and it had a beast as well. So you had two tentacle players to just mess with the middle.
And coming up with 3 Skaven teams, Elven Union, Wood Elves, Dark Elves, those tentacles could have done some serious damage.
Yeah, would have been good fun to watch. What else did we see? A couple of diving tackle I liked. You don't see it a lot, but I liked it. Couple of jump up, again, don't see heaps of it, but I like it. And then some questionable choices, things like, I think there was a frenzied Skaven lineman.
Okay.
As an example. I mean, sure. Go nuts. Some fun ones. There was some sure feet. There was a dirty player. There was, I like seeing a dirty player in there. We know what the person who's put in that roster has got in mind. And he's playing the numbers game. So again, good mix. Still some unsurprising results. And, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, I'll let you decide. But I feel like encouraging people to mix it up is kind of what I like doing. So we'll see what we do for the next one. But yeah, great. And look, the other thing I'll say is that's teams and skills, right? We also had a really good mix of just players, the people. So really good mix of some new players that have played, 2 or 3 games kind of deal, jumping in to just get some reps up, which I think was great. A bunch of guys from the local leagues, but also a bunch of guys that have come down from previous Thornton's Bowls, from Melbourne and around as well. So it was good to see and mix it up. And a bunch of the guys were going to other tournaments this month. So I feel like it was just people getting in some reps and throwing some extra block dice and feeling it. But it was really nice to have just a mix of experience and a mix of location, and just to see how everybody did just mingle and chat. And like it's one of the things I love about this game so much is how it's still a tactical game, but how laid back and friendly and just inclusive everybody is. It was just a really cool day to hang out and chat.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, like you said, really good to see some of those players, especially when the big V's on in 2 weeks. And I mean, what are they, 90 plus players?
93 players, I
Yes,
think.
for that. So a lot of those guys that were there, and especially traveling down from Melbourne, will be playing at the Big V. So,
which is 2 days. That's a whole weekend off. How do you get permission for that kind of thing?
yeah, I'm hoping to get up there for half a day.
2 days of 11s. That would absolutely destroy me. It'd be amazing. I would die, but it would be worth it. Yeah. All right. So anyway, that was kind of the setup going in. We got 14 players. We got a good mix of teams. We got a good mix of skills. We got a good mix of experience levels, and we have exceptionally enthusiastic people coming in to roll some dice and put up with my shit. So from there, do we want to give a bit of a rundown on what happened?
Yeah, look, I'll give a bit of a rundown of each round. So round 1, there were really no surprises in round 1. So we had Elven Union defeated the Goblins 2-1. Skaven defeated Amazons 2-0. Wood Elves defeated Tomb Kings 1-0. That was a low scoring game though. Yeah, for Wood Elves. And Tomb Kings really.
That was the juicy little grudge match.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch. Skaven defeated Skaven 2-1. So in round 1, we not only had Skaven versus Skaven, we also had Imperial Nobility versus Imperial Nobility.
Oh, the knob off.
The sword fight, if you will. That was a 2-all draw. Sorry.
That's a huge score too.
Yeah, that was the biggest score of the round, definitely. Chaos Renegades won, defeated the Goblins, nothing, and Dark Elves drew with the Chaos Dwarves, 1-1. So, that was not a bad little result.
That would have been a fun game to watch too. I mean, I feel like Chaos Dwarves in 7. I'm actually a little bit more interested. 11s, they're a little bit they're too reliable, but you can only get 4 positions.
Yeah.
That means you don't have a full line of ridiculously just reliable dwarves.
Yeah, very true. All right, moving on. Round 2, we had Chaos Dwarves drawing with Imperial Nobility 1-1. Then we had the other Imperial Nobility team drawing with the Chaos Renegades 2-2. So 2 rounds, both Imperial Nobility teams are on 2 draws. It's consistent. I like it.
Yeah.
In what I thought was a bit of a surprise result, Skaven defeated the Wood Elves 4-0.
Oof. This game,
Yes.
let's just pause here for a second. I watched a chunk of that and it was savage.
Yes.
And look, it wasn't it wasn't one player completely outplaying the other. I mean, they're both solid players. Both Liam and Val are rock solid players, but there was a point there where casualty dice or
Yes.
armor was broken. The Wood Elves had for most of the game 3 linemen on the pitch.
Yep.
The War Dancer got knocked out. He came back. He got knocked out and he stayed there for the rest of the game. The 2 catchers, throwers, the other 2 positions there, they were out for the game from the first drive. And effectively, the way this played is Val, who's playing the Wood Elves, would get scored against. He would receive the ball. He'd grab it. He'd run backwards, and then the rats would catch him.
Because the rats can.
And then someone would sack whoever had the ball. A gutter runner would pick it up in the end zone, and then they would reset.
Yeah.
So it was also the fastest game that round.
Yeah, it was incredible. I watched some of it, and I think one of the kickoff results had Val with it was a touchback, but the kickoff result ended up with 2 of his 3 guys stunned on the ground.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so he had one guy, solitary guy, with the ball running back into his own end zone. Yeah. Moving on, Goblins defeated Dark Elves 2-0.
Oof.
Yeah. Elven Union defeated Skaven 2-1, and then Tomb Kings defeated the other Skaven team 2-0. And lastly, the Goblins defeated the Amazons 1-0. So,
wow.
Yeah, both Goblins coming out with the win in round 2.
So, and I actually really liked, just again sidelining, that both those Goblin teams were different.
Yeah.
Like, I look at sevens, I look at goblins, and I'm like, right, well, I need 2 trolls, step 1. And then, all right, which one of the crazy ass positions you probably don't put the ball and chain in when you don't have a line of scrimmage? So the chainsaw is a solid option. And then it's who's your ball runner.
Yep.
And yeah, in a goblin team, it's hard to go past the diver.
Yeah.
Really,
that diver was
as a
really strong.
Did work. But so that's effectively what Dylan ran. All power to him. It's probably what I would have run. And then John showed up with goblins as well, and it was only the 1 troll. He still had the chainsaw. He had the pogo stick. And the other one.
The other one. The one we can't, both of us can't think of at the moment.
I could.
If we were smart,
the
we'd
roster's
have the
right here. I do have the rosters. So the hooligan. So the disturbing presence, sneaky git, dirty player, the foul machine.
Yeah. Excellent.
So I don't know, just good to see, a little bit of difference in those as well, and both doing all right. So John's a solid player with a gorgeous team, and Dylan has been pumping the reps with the Dark Elves. So I was really curious to see how he'd go with the Goblins.
Yeah. Round 3. So Wood Elves come back from their 4-0 loss and defeat Goblins 3-1. Skaven defeat Chaos Dwarves 1-0. Skaven defeat Elven Union 2-0. Skaven draw with Amazons 0-0 all. So after that, we've got Chaos Renegades defeating the Goblins 1-0. Imperial Nobility and Tomb Kings drawing 0-all. And Dark Elves defeating the other Nobility team 2-1. So a couple of surprises there, but
look, it's interesting to see the Nobility still pretty much middling.
I mean, what is this?
Just
this
as a general piece?
3 rounds in, and one of those Nobility teams have drawn every single game.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
That's consistent.
Which is not a bad thing in a game
all.
of very swingy things. Yes. Alrighty. I was really it was the Elven Union Skaven game. I was really interested to see how that played out because I thought that again could have gone to a 4-0 if somebody decided to start cracking armor like a fiend. It could have been a 2-all kind of, score fest, or a 3-2 if they really, put the boots in, but getting tight.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's getting hard to catch the leader.
All right, so final round for the day. So 4 rounds over the course of the day. Nice and easy day. We had Dark Elves defeating Imperial Nobility 2-0. In what was the top table, Skaven defeating the Chaos Renegades 3-0. Skaven defeating Goblins 2-0. Tomb Kings drawing with Elven Union 1-all. Tomb Kings did some solid work with some of these faster teams. Drawing with Elven Union and drawing with where are we? Imperial Nobility and defeating Skaven. Yeah, not too bad.
And only went down by 1 to the Wood Elves, I think.
I think so. Yeah, no, definitely did. So all in all, that's a really good, solid. Better than I expected, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm.
Chaos Dwarves defeat Goblins 1-0. Wood Elves defeat Skaven 3-1. And Imperial Nobility defeat the Amazons 2-1. So just running through the final standings, shall we? Let's go backwards. So Mark H playing Amazons, 14 points. This is out of a total of 108 points that they could have gotten for the day.
And let's just really call out that I think that's what Mark's third game.
Yeah,
so brand new. He literally ran basically the same team as he's running the league, which is the first time he's really played. He just threw a handful of skills that we kind of chatted about on stuff to get a handle of it, because obviously he hasn't played with any of them. So I think there was still A, getting used to the game, B, getting used to the team, C, trying out a bunch of skills for the first time. And he was just a champ the whole day. So
absolutely.
As much as he didn't get results,
hopefully he had fun.
That's it.
Which at the end of the day is its own result. 13th place, John, Goblins, 28 points. Closely followed by Dylan C with Goblins and 29 points. So the two Goblin teams, very neck and neck there. Oswald playing Skaven, 35 points. Again, first couple of games.
Just picking it up now. And
he's had one league game and one practice game before that, and that could be about it.
Yeah.
Ian, Imperial Nobility, 38 points, followed by Mark B with Imperial Nobility, 48 points.
There you go.
Jared, Tomb Kings, 51 points. Closely beaten by Dylan G with Skaven, 52 points. Anthony, Chaos Dwarves, 55 points. William with Chaos Renegades, 61 points. So that losing that final, we've seen it happen so many times, losing that final top tier table drops you down.
Drops you.
Unless you can, you've got to be able to pull some of those points.
And again, the Renegades weren't a team that you would expect to do particularly well. It's terrifying potentially to line up against them, but they're not a tournament winning team.
Start of the day, I wouldn't have expected them to be in the top table at the end. Marcus, Elven Union, 61 points. And then we get the top three. So Matt with his Dark Elves, 62 points. Followed by Val, Wood Elves, 72 points. And then out of the total 108 points, Liam Skaven, 99 points. So pretty much
that is
spot on.
That is good. Yeah. Like, even you expect somebody to be ahead at the end of the day. Like, somebody's going to win this thing, right? But to be, 27 points clear by the end, and to be that close to maxing out, that is that is a performance.
Yeah. Look, if he'd lost that last game, obviously that would have dropped him down. But yeah, what was it? It was a 3.
It would have dropped him down.
Would have dropped him down considerably. So what did he score in the last round? I think it was something like 25 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, still would have kept him second, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And it would have depended, it would have started talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and Liam with his Skaven, this Skaven roster was quite deadly. Like, he had 7 players, 6 skills. And yeah, he ran them well all day.
Yeah, I mean, Liam is an old hat at the game. He played a little bit, and I think he's seen sevens as a format where you can dash pretty well, and he's just maximized that and just played that game, and he's just stuck to the game plan every game, and it's paid off for him. I mean, I feel like in if games had gone differently, gutter runners had been murdered, it would have been interesting, or not even murdered, maybe just sucked into some tentacles.
My kingdom for Nurgle.
I had a Bloodspawn break tackle out and surf him. There's so many things that could have happened, but no, he'd stuck to the game plan and turned that around. I think having a look at those final standings, Skaven, Alf.
Yep. All tier 1 stuff. We gave them the least amount of money to spend, and still turned out top 4.
Yeah. I mean, the other half of this is I'm looking at the players, and they all know their stuff as well. Yep. So we can't only blame the teams here, because there is Skaven in the bottom 4 as well.
Yeah.
But we can significantly look at the experience level of the players there. Goblins still down the bottom, even with a couple of coaches that are doing pretty well. I think that what I'm seeing from this, and this is a very much off the cuff thought, is the results are pretty much in tier order, right? You've got Skaven and Elves, then you've got a bit of a mix. There's some Tomb Kings, some Nobility, the Renegades,
the Dwarves.
And there's always Castles. They're tier 1, and that's still what a top 5 result. I think in that middle bit, you expect a little bit of the tier 1 teams that didn't, the tier 3 teams that did like that thing, but it's in the middle of the pack, and the only tier 3 teams that were, or apart from the Renegades, which were the show off here, the Goblins still sitting down that bottom of the pack. So there's probably a question there around whether we did enough to level the playing field, or whether just the right people took the right teams for the day.
I think we did good. I think it was the right people.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. So those are the final standings. We ran a couple of other awards as well. So everybody voted for their favorite opponent throughout the day. 3rd and 4th for that, tied for 3rd and 4th pretty much, were Val and Liam. So to come top 2 and pretty much just shy of making best opponent is obviously an indication of how much fun people are having losing to them.
And that can be hard, right?
First and second both got 3 votes from people for best opponent. At the end of the day, the way we've always done it is that the person that comes lowest in the final standings will win that, because obviously it's harder to be somebody's favorite opponent if you're losing every game.
Yeah. If you're a salty bastard it's probably not going to be great for people. But if you can lose gracefully, I mean, the same way if you can win gracefully. But I feel like if you can take a licking and still make sure that your opponent's having a good game, and still be remembered for the game that you had fun doing, it's a good place to be. So yeah.
So Mark B with Imperial Nobility came second just because in the overall scheme of things, he did better than Dylan Carter with Goblins. So Dylan takes out the best opponent. We also did a coolest team award. So whatever people wanted to assume coolest team meant. But this was no surprise whatsoever. Dylan's Goblins with 9 points came third. Matthew's Dark Elves came second again. That's 2 tournaments in a row that team's come second, and it's such a cool team. 18 points. But then in a shock to nobody, John's Goblins, 32 points. And they just looked phenomenal.
So knowing full well that audio isn't the greatest medium to talk about a visual thing, let's talk about a visual thing.
They priority.
That was so pretty. So, I mean, going back, Dylan's put some work into the Goblins. He did a little display board for him. He had props there. He had a little bottle of tequila. He named them all the Tequila Slammers, and all of them were named something relevant. And he had a little bottle of tequila there and a little stand and all this kind of stuff. And he even tried to find grass tufts that only that would match the color of the grass that you get of a plant that grows in the area that you make tequila. He went next level. So it was super cool to see him get some credit for that one. Matt's Dark Owls, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Dark Owls. Oh my God, they're amazing.
They are so cool.
And he'd updated them since we last see him. So he had a couple of extra players. He had a Shredder Assassin. He had a
Splinter.
A Splinter kicking around, and there was a Rocksteady and a Bebop. He had a case full of others. There was heaps in there.
There was a pizza box case.
There was a pizza box case with a pitch on the inside that he'd made up. Super cool. And well deserving. He'd be well deserving of a coolest team award, but definitely well deserving of the second place. John's Goblins, though.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, they were something else. What you talked to him a bit about what sort of models were they again?
So his troll was from Confrontation. So now out of production game from Rackham, who had very much their own style, their own aesthetic. It was really good. It was very different to everything else that was being produced at the time. So the troll was from that. He said he'd got a bunch of models from a third-party company that had basically tried to do alternate models for the Confrontation back in the day. So we got a bunch of them. There's some 3D printed bits and pieces in there, but he'd converted everything. He had, changed things, like he'd 3D printed a chainsaw so he could stick that on a goblin somewhere, and he'd given his pogo had like spring skis, but they were actual springs, so he kind of sprung a little bit. So all of this going on. And on top of that, the jerk decided to paint checks, black and white checks on them, and they gave it, because the Confrontation, that kind of aesthetic was a little bit exaggerated. It was a little bit cartoony. It was a little bit, Jim Henson Labyrinth kind of Willy Wonka-ish in its Tim Burton-ish almost in its proportions. So you add the black and white checks and some extra detail, and it had a real kind of creepy Alice in Wonderland-y kind of vibe to it as well, which I super dug. But he was doing checks that weren't just straight black and white. They were a little bit curved. They were a little bit oddly shaped. He was doing them over all kinds of surfaces, so it wasn't just big flat spaces of black and white lines. It was trying to get them right over folds in material and stuff as well, which just blows my mind.
It was something next level. I mean, to be expected from John too. So we've run a couple of these. Mark with his Dark Elves, like we said, come second in two of them. Mark's Dark Elves were just they were beaten by Alice's tie-dye Nurgle last tournament. But the first one we ran, John brought halflings and took away Coolest Team as well with his little halfling master chef cooking pot.
Oh, they had the cooking pot display, didn't
Yeah.
they? Yeah, that was glorious.
Lovely.
Dude knows how to hobby.
Yeah, certainly does.
Is that an Aerosmith song?
It is now.
Right, done.
The only other award for the day was Rich's idea, actually, and I'm quite impressed by
I like it.
It's really cool. So, you know, a lot of tournaments have a wooden spoon award for the person that comes last. You get through a couple of games in a day, you kind of know if you're in the running for a wooden spoon award, and if you really wanted to, you could probably aim for wooden spoon. So to stop people aiming, the average as fuck award was awarded in each game to the person that came top middle. So even number
Also bottom middle. They just
no. So
they got bottom.
it was 14 players, so it was the person that came seventh. So
yeah, so they were the top middle player, but they were also the bottom middle player.
That would be eighth, wouldn't it?
No, because the middle would be 7, so they have to be.
I suppose. Anyway,
I divide 14 by 2.
Yeah.
Now I didn't pass math, so let's be clear.
But if you're coming seventh, there are 6 people ahead of you.
Yes,
and there's 7 people behind you.
No, we're going to get completely off topic if we go too far down this rabbit hole.
Anyway, Dylan with his Skaven, 52 points, narrowly beating Jared on his Tomb Kings for 51 points. So Jared was, with his couple of ties there and his win, he was right on track for that average. But yeah, just taken out by Dylan in the end. So, I mean, overall, as far as TOing goes, relatively straightforward. I think
it was relatively straightforward for me. You did all the work.
Well, look,
I just ran around and heckled.
We were organised. We had stuff ready to go. We had all the printouts going. All that sort of stuff was there. I did have to chase up a couple of people, for filling in various things and getting them back to me on time. And then, of course, there were the typical people rocking up a couple of minutes after we were supposed to have started. So, if it's a 10 o'clock start, guys, for a 10:15 first game, don't rock up at 10:20. Just saying.
And I did get messages to say people got held up in traffic and stuff. I get that completely. But if you live within 15 minutes of the venue...
Yes.
So look, that's, and then I suppose the other one that was, if this is the hardest thing a TO has to deal with on the day, it's a good day. But game time, round time. Yep. And we were loosey-goosey on it. We had the time. We knew we weren't going to be a problem. And look, in the end, I think it actually kind of mattered to results. So I'm glad we let some games play on. But, if this event was any bigger, if we, were running another round or anything, none of that would be at all possible. So we let it go given, the day and what we knew it was going to be and how we knew it was going to pan out. But that's probably the other one that just out of principle I would crack down on.
Oh, well, maybe we'll think about that for the next event.
Ooh.
So, I mean,
can we give a point for score sheets in on time?
I mean, technically we can. If we're
we absolutely can.
We can do what we want
and do whatever the fuck I want. But as just as a concept, if your score sheet is in before the end of the round, you get a point.
Worth considering. Yeah. Anyway,
Let's do the math.
we'll do the
Anyway.
math. Well, there's a few things we need to work out. But you got anything else to say about ASG?
Look, the couple of other cool things that I just would want to call out is Rich likes to make a little bit of a spectacle and a game of his events. So at the start of the day, he comes up and goes, "Hey, I've got these party poppers.
Yes.
How about," I was talking to one of the players, "how about every time somebody gets injured, you let off a party popper and I'll run over and I'll give them a chocolate. And then if they roll a 12 on this dice, they can also have a voucher to the store." It was a D12. So, 1 in 12 chance that you get a store voucher, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And we sort of went, "Oh, how many of these party poppers do you want to let off?" And he's like, no, I want it to be hard, but I want it to be something that happens. And we're like, all right, because you might get a few.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it'll be all right. So game one,
Round
40K let off a couple of party poppers. And Lord of the Rings had an occasional. I think they were doing that if your guy kills another guy in a challenge or something. I don't know how the game works, so why not? It smelled like gunpowder over the Blood Bowl tournament. It was just...
There were injuries after injuries after injuries. You keep talking. Keep talking about this.
So I mean, that was round one, and we had multiple a game. So 2 players. I don't know if anyone missed out for a round.
19 casualties round one. There were 3 teams that didn't get one. There were 2 players that came away with 3.
And there were at least 8 players that came away with diabetes. So we had a little bit of a chat to Rich about after that, because not only are we chewing up all his chocolate and his party poppers, but each one of those players has a chance to win a store voucher as well. Mm-hmm. So we decided to limit it to the first casualty of a game. So 1 per player per game, and that would make it a little bit less bonkers. But
there was still a lot
what
going
would happen? It was. We were still burning through, more than 7 a game around. But what was cool, right, is that you'd have a party popper go off in the 40K area and there'd be this bang and people would just, yay! And then Richard run over with his bag of chocolate and his dice and stuff. And then you'd have one go off at the Lord of the Rings and, yay! And then, he'd run over with his bag of chocolate, and then you'd have 7 go off in the Blood Bowl section. And it was, every time, yay! And Rich and Nikki would run around with this big old basket, like it was basically like a washing basket full of chocolate. He's running around with it. It was great. It just, again, added to the atmosphere, just the fun, just the something else about the day. So I really dug that. He got his cardio up, which is a good thing. And that was super cool. So I mean, the venue, there's food there, there's drinks there. It's a little bit out of the way, but it's a really nice space with some great people running it, and great facilities. The extra effort Rich went to not only relocate the whole store, but then do the extra stuff during the day. He hand painted all of the first place trophies for all of the games. That was super cool.
Nice trophies too.
Big old, goblin statues that he'd themed for each game as well. So there was one with a sword and a shield for Lord of the Rings. There was something else, and then there was a goblin throwing a rock for Blood Bowl, which I thought was super appropriate.
I don't think Rich realized how appropriate it was until I told him.
And it was perfect. So yeah, look, it showed his maturity and experience in running events. It was just a really super cool atmosphere, and again, thanks to everyone for coming down and just supporting it. I suppose is the big thing for me, and just taking the day in the spirit it was intended.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun for us to run these things because it's just Blood Bowl's just too laid back.
My God, I am keen to roll some block dice though.
Oh yeah, you're up tomorrow, aren't you? League
I'm
night
so
tomorrow.
off tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need updates, man. I need updates. So what we might do is take a bit of a break, play some music, and then we're going to come back with an interview with Liam, who came away with the win. But before we do that, just quickly, again, thank you to everyone for coming. ASG is done. We are already looking into the future. Thoughtless Bowl 3 is coming, and by God, I am excited. I don't think I've been this excited about any of our tournaments so far. Not this level. And
It's going to be fun.
yeah, we're a couple of months out, and we have so much planned. Some things that we're going to tell you, some things we might save for the day. So,
all right, stay tuned. Speaking of tunes, let's play some of them, and we'll come back and maybe we'll learn a thing or two about how to play this game.
Cruised into a bar on the shore. Her picture graced the grime on the door. She, a long-lost love at first bite. Baby, maybe you're wrong, but you know it's all right. That's right. Dude looks like a lady. 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 So never judge a book by its cover, or who you're gonna love by your lover. Love put me wise to her love in disguise. She had the body of a Venus. Lord, imagine my surprise. Dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady.
And we are back. And
all of us.
This podcast just got a whole lot more quality. That was a low bar for us to set at the beginning, but it's better.
It's not even double. It's like quadrupled.
It is, yeah. So we are now officially a triplet. Is that how this works? No.
We've multiplied. It's like those little rabbits.
Yeah, we're swarming. No, we've got with us Liam, who was the most recent, the ultimate victor of Blood Bowl 7s at All Systems Go. So he's come along. Welcome to the party, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I guess we know you a little bit, probably a little bit more than a few people listening. So it'd be just super cool to get a real brief history in time. Where'd you come from? How'd you find Blood Bowl? How long you been playing? All that jazz.
Yeah. How long have I been playing for? I guess how I found it, we were into 40K. We were nerds in high school, my friends and I, as most of us were, and we dabbled in a bit of 40K and Warhammer Fantasy and all that sort of good stuff, and we just I don't even remember how I stumbled across Blood Bowl, but just through that sort of Games Workshop sphere, it came up somehow, I guess, and it was a perfect blend because I'm actually kind of a blend of a jock as well, where I was big into my sport, and so I was like, oh, this is cool, a sport like board game mixed with all the fantasy elements, and then it had the RPG elements, the team building and progression and all that sort of stuff, and yeah, we picked it up and pretty much never looked back. So that must have been at least 10 years ago now, if not more, because I've been out of high school for 10 years now. So yeah, it's been ages, and it's been very, very fun. Pretty much the only game that I play, Blood Bowl, in terms of, war gaming.
Yeah. Wow. So, and I mean, wow, I'm trying to remember. You're running a bunch of leagues. You're involved in a bunch of leagues from pretty much then onwards, as far as I can tell.
Yep.
So I think we crossed paths pretty early and probably on in that piece.
Yeah, that would have been probably, I reckon. So we started a league just amongst kind of our close immediate friends, and then probably played a couple of seasons of that. Just like, I think it must have been like maybe just 5 or 6 of us, and then after that we were like, oh, surely there's more people around Geelong that want to play Blood Bowl, and we just kind of got the word out, and I remember running into you, into Pip, all those guys who just kind of were like, yeah, Blood Bowl sounds fun, and everyone just started playing. I think we had for a while there, I reckon we would have had close to at least 14 to 20, somewhere in that range, where we had at its peak. But then eventually I think people just kind of lost interest and were interested in playing other games and whatever else. But yeah, for a while there, it was pumping.
It's huge. Because you're right. And then it's sort of when everything was going and that the website was running and all those things were going and people were, wow. How long ago was that?
I'm trying to think. I reckon it would have been somewhere around, I would guess like 20, maybe 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there.
Somewhere. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking the pre-COVID times. Can anyone remember?
Yeah, but the pre-dark times, yeah.
All those things. Yeah, sweet. All right. And so found Blood Bowl, that's pretty much all you're playing tabletop now, you're saying?
Yeah. I like board games and that sort of stuff, just like, general board games, playing those, and bit of card games, Magic the Gathering, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't really play any 40k or fantasy, anything. I dabbled in a few things, Malifaux, but yeah, don't really play anything consistently because Blood Bowl's kind of always just been front of mind.
What else do you need?
Exactly. It's all downhill from Blood Bowl.
Alrighty, and really quickly on a bit of a Blood Bowl tangent, just favourite team off the bat?
I think it's either Skaven or Woodies. It's a toss-up between those two.
Either way, it's all dash.
Yeah, it's fast and it's flashy. If I can't score 8 touchdowns against someone, I'm not really interested.
Well, you almost bloody well did that over the weekend. It was some bonkers days. So we might spin into sort of, the games, what you took. So what was the roster? We're playing sevens. You got a couple of skills. Go.
Yeah, so I did take Skaven, with the thought process being, because that was only, the weekend was only my second game of sevens. Obviously played Blood Bowl a long time, but never sevens. And from my first game of sevens, it was very, very different to how I thought it would be, in terms of what I guess was a good, what to prioritize in a team, and I think speed was the way to go. And I was like, Skaven are pretty cheap, pretty fast. So I went with a couple of gutter runners, a blitzer and a thrower, and then just filled up to 7 with the lineman. I was dirty and I took leader on the thrower. Then I took block on both the gutter runners and a tackle blitzer.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the difference to there were a couple of Skaven teams there. One went the Rat Ogre route, which I can never deny anyone a big guy. And then I think the other one probably threw a bench in there rather than just loading up on skills.
Yep.
But found the skills were worth it.
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, I probably was a little bit lucky over the weekend, where the leader was a bit more of a luxury in a few games than a necessity. But yeah, the blodging gutter runners, people didn't really know how to deal with them. And I mean, one tackle's always good to have. It was useless. It never did its job, but in theory, it's good.
The threat, if nothing else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go on. Go away, Amazon. Dodge away from this, just in case.
Exactly.
So having 7 players in a sevens team, and a team that can be as fragile as Skaven can be, were you ever missing like that extra bench player, or was 7 enough for you?
Again, I was pretty lucky over the weekend, so I think I only took 1 casualty for the whole weekend. But I guess that was another thing that I didn't really expect coming into sevens as opposed to 11s, where you don't take nearly as much blocks as you do in sevens as you do in 11s, because you don't have to chuck anyone on the line of scrimmage. So not getting smacked 3 times to start a drive means that you can kind of protect your players a little bit more. I think sevens really emphasizes maximizing blocks, and so if people don't maximize blocks, you can kind of keep your players safe. You can only, they might get 1 hit a turn, maybe 2 if they're not maximizing blocks, like I said. But no, I was pretty lucky where the 7 was enough for the whole day. But I think sometimes when you make tournament lists and rosters, you kind of do have to do that high roll a little bit, and you either in 11s we sometimes go with very few rerolls. Back in the old rules, we'd go with very few rerolls in tournament rosters, just kind of based on the assumption that if you roll well anyway, you're going to win. And so if you have the money spent on the rerolls elsewhere, then it kind of maximizes your luck. And same thing sometimes with smaller, or I guess rosters that don't have as many players. You just kind of go, well, hopefully I don't take any casualties, and if I don't, I'm going to win. If I do, maybe that one extra player wouldn't have helped me anyway, because I might have just taken 3 or 4 casualties and it wouldn't have mattered.
And I think what we've just all established is why you're better at Blood Bowl than I am. This is infinitely more thinking than I've done in all of the time. Anyway, so, all right, we've got a roster. It's looking pretty shiny. It looks like it's going to score 8 touchdowns. Let's just burn through games really quickly and just kind of what you can remember, knowing that it was a week ago and there's been some COVID in between.
Yep.
That's a rough one. But so first game, Mark Hanna, Amazons.
Yeah, so the Amazons game, that was kind of interesting actually, because it was a pretty tight game in the second half. So I actually he received the ball, which I think is another interesting thing. I think it's way better to kick the ball in 7s than it is in 11s, and make them have to come to you, like I said, because you don't get the blocks on the line of scrimmage anyway. It seems pretty good to make them have to come to you, and then you get to make hits as they come to you. But he kind of just I think went a little bit hard a little bit early and left himself open, maybe underestimated how fast the Skaven were, and I managed to kind of get behind him, turn him over and score and go 1-0 up at the end of the first half. And then I think the issue he ran into in the second half was he didn't really know how to get the ball off me. I kind of just sat there and moved side to side, and he didn't really know how to deal with someone who just didn't look like they were going to ever try and score, which was kind of a theme throughout the day. There was quite a few times where it looked like people were a bit confused as to why I wasn't just moving forward my full movement every turn. But that's the benefit of Skaven, where I only need to get to a certain point and then the gutter runner can score anyway. I don't need to move forward anymore. So
if you're over halfway, you just look for the opening.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that ended up being a 2-0.
Yeah, so I did score, I think, in the last turn. But I think I did a few casualties in that game too. So he started to lose some players. I got a little bit lucky with some POWs and knocking some Zons down and removing them, and then the game got a little bit easier from there. But it was actually, I think, in another world where he maybe is a little bit more patient in the first half and didn't give me the opportunity to hit the ball, then it was probably a bit touch and go.
Cool. And probably call out there, I think this is about Mark's 4th game of Blood Bowl. So he's picking it up. He's a smart dude. He plays a lot of games, but it's impressive to see newer players doing pretty cool things and putting up a good game for you too.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right,
Game two is the one I really want to talk about. So game 2 against Val's Wood Elves.
Yeah, I think game 2's maybe a bit of a stretch calling it a game. I
mean, any game against Val's always like that.
Poor Val ran into a bit of a Skaven fury and ended the game with 3 players on the pitch. So that was probably one that really highlighted, I guess, the brutality of 7s when you do start to lose a few players.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure from memory, I think I did one casualty, and then that next turn, Val actually double sculled his last block of the turn, and that player got injured as well. And from there, because I had the ball, he was a bit desperate, and he started to give me more and more blocks, and then more and more woodies started to fly off the pitch. So, yeah, it ended up not being much of a game. I think it was like 4-0, and I snaked a pickup to go 5-0 up in the end. But that one for me probably really just showed how tough it is to play woodies in sevens, just given the limited amount of cash that you have. So I think he had one skill on his war dancer, which was strip ball, which I definitely didn't hate. I thought that was really good. But then that was basically all his team had. I think he had a couple of throwers. And I think really the only reason he had throwers is because you just had the money to make your linemen throwers instead of linemen. Otherwise, it's just all linemen. So
That's it.
I did look at trying to play woodies because I thought they would be fun with the war dancers. But, yeah, they're just so expensive that it gets really hard. And, that probably shows the, I guess, the other side of how my list could have gone, where if you just have one game where you take a couple of casualties, you just fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely, that was a match to watch. It was a 4-0 result in the end. You got the two casualties, kept him to obviously got the point for the perfect defense as well. I think I came along and had a watch while you kicked off to him. I think it was a touchback, but also a pitch invasion when he had three guys left.
Yes, there was. Yep, that did happen.
Yes, so it was an interesting one to watch. I know exactly what you mean about the Wood Elves too, because I'm currently playing them in the league, and you just don't get the cash to spend. 600k got me a war dancer, a thrower, and a catcher. So or position down, because those 70k linemen are just painful in sevens.
They are. They're good. They're definitely good players, but you'd still rather have a war dancer.
Yes.
In fact, can I play with 6 on the pitch? I'll have to have 2 war dancers.
Yeah.
It's looking up the rules going, do I need to buy 7 players? Can I just start off with a journeyman? But yeah, no, that was a hell of a game, definitely.
That was a rough one. It was fun to watch. And Val took it like a champ, but damn, it was it does show just how brutal.
There's also a blitz in that game as well, just to really rub salt in the wounds. The ball was in the middle of the pitch. There was a gutter under underneath it. There was a gutter under and a cage, the semi-cage around the ball, and the poor guy just didn't really get to play a game of Blood Bowl, to be honest.
I was watching him grab the ball, when you were kicking to him after you'd scored for the 3rd time, and he's running backwards because he's only got 2 guys standing, and the gutter runners still get to him. Anyhow, let's stop rubbing salt in that wound. Game 3 was Marcus with the Elven Union.
Yes.
Yeah.
More edge.
This was actually another really tight game. So I can't really remember what he had apart from the blitzer that he had with Pro, which I thought was interesting. Like, Pro is a pretty good skill, particularly in 11s. It's really good, and it's taken in a lot of tournaments on quite a few different players in different teams. But I thought that was interesting in 7s as well, because I guess it gives him quite a bit of versatility. He can use it on anything he wants. But it was definitely the sidestep that was the most annoying part with the Elven Union blitzer. Hitting that guy was very, very tough. Actually, I don't think I mentioned I did have two linemen that were skilled as well. So I had a block lineman and a wrestle lineman. And that was the wrestle lineman's game to shine, because Marcus played really well and positioned his blitzer in a lot of very awkward spots, but my MVP wrestle lineman could just come in and wrestle him to the ground, and then he couldn't sidestep to wherever he wanted to go to. So I think that was another game where he just maybe underestimated how quick the Skaven were, and it allowed me to, again, get behind him and knock the ball free and manage to turn him over and score. And I think, was that 2-0 as well? I actually can't remember that one. Yeah, I think that was kind of similar to the first, where I managed to turn him over towards the end of the first half and get away and score. And then the second half, he maybe could have tried a few more funky things to stop me from scoring when I think that was probably for both game 1 and game 2, and probably games 3, sorry, probably game 4 as well. Maybe just realizing, I'm actually 1-0 down. Maybe I should just try some things that are a little bit harder to do to try and win the game or get a result from the game, rather than just slowly lose it, death by a thousand cuts style.
And I think, look, it probably also speaks to defense in sevens is rough, right? You've only got 7 players. It's not a massive chance or massive length between end zones, and you don't get to start with line of scrimmage to start hitting things and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think particularly when people are playing, edge teams and dashy teams, you can't just stall out.
Yeah.
So you have to really sort of think about how you're playing defense. It's a tough one.
Yeah. I think it goes back to an old adage that we sometimes play by, which is just trust your defense. So sometimes you're better off just score early, score in 4 turns or something, and then just go, you know what, I'm going to score in 4 turns, but you're not going to be able to score back on me. I'm going to stop you from scoring. Whereas sometimes I think guys try and think that they have to grind out, they have to score on the last turn for it to be a good drive, when as long as you score and the opponent doesn't, you've had a good half.
Absolutely, and it's only 6 turns, so if you're scoring turn 4, damn. All right, so and Marcus is an old hat at the game as well. He plays a bit of everything, but he's been around a fair bit as well. So another rough one. And speaking of tough opponents, but maybe different lists. Game 4, Will Hoffman with the Renegades.
Yeah, that was a scary game, actually. It was a very scary game. It was pretty much exactly how you would expect. And I kind of did myself in, because I actually spoke to Will before we played, not knowing we would play, and had let slip that people had just been trying to rush a little bit too much against me, and I'd managed to get behind them and take the ball off them. So he knew that I had done that to people and was actively trying not to do that. But yeah, the three big guys were just way scarier than I thought they would be, actually. Because I guess from my first game in sevens, I thought speed would just be the best, and that everything else was kind of secondary. But that game, I think, really showed me that Strength 5 is still really, really good in sevens. You've got limited skills. It's harder because the players are kind of just all in a scrum. Sometimes you can't really get those 1 die or 2 die blocks to knock big guys down. But that was a scary game that kind of just he had a bad turn where two of his 3 big guys rolled ones, so they didn't do anything. He still actually did a decent job of protecting the ball. He could have done a little bit of a better job. There was one player that he moved in 1 square wrong, which allowed me to dodge in for a 4+ and 2 die uphill his ball carrier with a gutter runner. But the objective was actually just to, even if I just pushed his ball carrier, I was pushing him into a 1 die block with my blitzer. And so I knocked the ball down from there, and it was a bit difficult for him to get the ball back once it kind of hit the ground and his big guys started bumbling around. His troll was absolutely horrendous. That must have been probably about turn 4, I think, and from there I reckon it was lucky to activate for 3 turns after that. For the rest of the game, it was horrendous. It did get left high and dry a few times, because once it failed that first one, you don't really have the luxury of sending someone back to lend a hand to get him going. But yeah, that was actually a very scary game when it was such an odd list, I guess, a weird list where it's okay, 3 big guys, let's see how this goes. And yeah, I think there is a world where if he rolls a little bit better, that game was a draw or maybe even a loss.
Yeah, it was a cool list. It got me a little bit excited about the idea of renegades and sevens because from memory it was the ogre, the troll, the minnow, and the dark elf. I
Yep.
think the dark elf got dodge as the only skill he could afford after that, and just fill out with linemen. But 3 strength 5 and 3 good strength 5 players. Yeah.
Yeah.
And still a dark elf.
I think he could have played it a little bit differently actually. Now that I think of it, because he probably tried to use his big guys as part of the cage a bit more than I would have. I probably would have actually just been running my big guys into rats and saying to the rats, "Well, you either have to try and hit me, which is going to take quite a few players to commit to give 2 die blocks, or you got to try and dodge away from me, which there's only the gutter runners that you're really going to want to do that with, and otherwise the big guys are getting hits with mighty blow and hopefully removing rats." So he maybe could have played a little bit differently, but I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
2020 every time.
So that one was a 3-0 win, but I think I came across would have been at least halfway through through the first half, and it was still a 0-0 game at that point.
Yeah,
there was some panicked looks on both your faces, I think.
I think it was a last turn score in the first half for me, and then I scored in 2 turns in the second half just to go 2-0 up, and then from there he obviously had to try and do something, and that meant that his dice rolls were getting a little bit harder and harder to do, and yeah, I think I ended up just scoring a third that really didn't mean much in the context of the game.
Yeah, but it means something in the overall scheme of things. I mean, you went 11 touchdowns for the day, 5 casualties, but more importantly, all 4 perfect defenses. So you didn't have a single touchdown scored against you.
Yeah, I don't like people scoring against me.
But in sevens with an all-strength 3 or less team isn't a mean feat as well. So I think there's some definite props in that one.
Thank you.
I mean, you're playing mostly elves or Amazons. They're basically elves, right? So
worse elves.
Yeah. So, probably matchups helped and all that kind of stuff with the defense. It gives you some extra chances to score, but yeah, damn. That is the highest scoring sevens game I have seen against Val. And then to back it up with a 3-0 in the last one is a fair old effort. So I think, what was the total possible score? I can't remember.
Total possible was 108. So it was 27 around.
Cool. And that's 20 for a win plus, extra for 3 touchdowns and a perfect defense and maybe some cash. And you tipped it at 99 out of 108?
Didn't crack the 100.
No. So, room to improve. That's the moral of the story here.
But not much room.
No. And, what is it, like a clear 20-odd points away from the next player. So, what a day. So overall thoughts, this is pretty early on sevens, but compared to 11s, how are we finding it?
It's really, really fun. It's actually more fun than I thought it would be, which is no knock on sevens. I just do like 11s. And I think I mentioned to you when we played the first sevens games, I had been falling out of love with Blood Bowl a little bit, having played it for, as long as I have, and not really playing anything else, not really taking a break. During the pandemic, I was playing in so many leagues online that it was kind of like I was playing almost a game a day, which maybe burnt me out a little bit. But yeah, coming into sevens, I was like, oh, well, this just seems like just a fun little thing to play. It's a bit faster paced, which I like. I do like trying to play games fast. I think that's a bit more fun. But yeah, it's actually really, really fun. I like I think it's, in a way, it's almost a bit more punishing than 11s, with no rerolls. I think your positioning obviously matters in 11s as well, but your positioning in 7s is really, really important because you don't have the players to recover. you don't sometimes have the players to cover the squares that you want to cover if you make a mistake with one player. You don't want to have to roll a go for it because you don't want to have a player fall down and leave holes. So, it's actually really, really fun. I'm definitely looking forward to playing more sevens.
Love it. And overall thoughts between, you don't just lay it on us, but thoughts of the day, the tournament, the pack, what you might do differently, what you liked.
It was all actually good. It was the All Systems Go was actually really, really cool. I didn't realize how much I'd missed that kind of convention-y or just having everyone kind of in a big hall playing games. It's a really, really cool feeling if people haven't done that before. I'd highly recommend just going to, even if you don't play, just go to a tournament for a game that you like and just kind of be in the atmosphere. It's really, really fun. I remember going to CanCon a few times and playing Blood Bowl there, and just, it's fun finishing your game and then walking and going to look at someone's cool, 40k army or Lord of the Rings army or something like that. So the whole day was really cool. The pack was fun. I like the pack and the fact that you tried to promote the lesser teams or the lower tiered teams with a few more skills or a bit more money that they could spend.
It didn't work. We tried.
I think it's kind of hard in sevens because you do, like, you're already kind of handicapped. So I think sometimes people just want to play stuff that they're like, well, I don't want to not do anything all day. Though I think Jono played Goblins, and I think he did okay in the end from memory. I think he got a couple of wins in there.
So he got one win from the looks of it.
One win, okay.
On that, but yeah, it ended up. Let's just do this correctly. Ended up 13th.
Okay, yeah.
So didn't do great, but that was very much him taking the team that he'd had, right? He's like, this is the team I've got. I love it. I've spent a bunch of time painting it. I'm running in 11s, and I'm just going to put it into 7s.
And it is a very, very nice team.
So pretty. And look, if you're drawing or sneaking out a win in the day with a Goblin team, especially one that you're not even really trying to optimize, you just taking the cool stuff because that's what you've got painted. Absolutely. And I think with no limited inducements, no star players, there's only so many skills you want to put on Goblins, right?
Yeah, actually, that's probably the big thing in sevens is the no star players for those halflings, goblins, snotlings. The stars in 11s are very, very, very good, and not having them in sevens probably does. You're probably more if you do like Blood Bowl and you like playing both, and you go to an 11s tournament, you're probably more likely to play a tier 3 team there and take a star, and then in sevens play something that's a bit more a higher tier and try and have a few wins. So I think there is definitely no reason why in this players pack I reckon Ogres could win the tournament.
Yeah, look, I want to give extra props to John because he came with Goblins. Barring the fact that he took away the coolest team and all that, didn't make it to Thoughtless Bowl 2, but Thoughtless Bowl 1 he came along and played Halflings. So
and took our coolest team there as well.
He did take our coolest team as well, but loving the tier 3 love.
Yeah, shout out to Jono shout out to Jono's wife actually who lets him go to every Blood Bowl tournament that ever has existed.
Excellent. I'm guessing we'll see him in a couple of weeks then.
He chose well. Well played, Jono. So I mean that's kind of the overall kind of thoughts and feelings and stuff that we want to get from you. But it's super cool to hear someone who's been playing Blood Bowl for however long, kind of discovered sevens, new format. Turns out the resume, the skills are cross. they work, right? They're transferable.
They are.
Excellent. No, look, thank you for joining us. It's really, really interesting. Like Jay said, like that transition from 11 to 7s, we've done it. We've been there. We've been harping on about 7s for a while. But also nice to know that we're not the only ones that, it is something different to 11s, and it's a bit of a special format.
Definitely.
That's it. And I don't have the attention span. Like I looked at the, all the guys going to the Big V next week, and just, the idea of 2 days of, 2.5 hour games, I would actually die. Literally die. It sounds amazing though. So you're off to that one as well?
Yeah, so I think I'm playing in the Cheeky V, which is the 7s tournament on the Friday, so I've been told. So that'll be interesting. And then, going to Big V, which will be very, very fun. I think if everyone comes, it will be up there, if not the biggest Blood Bowl tournament that Australia's ever had. So, that'll be really, really cool. And shout out to Johnny for putting that all together. He puts a lot of effort into a lot of different events in the Victorian Blood Bowl calendar. So, mad props to him. He deserves to have everyone come, and it'd be a huge success.
Absolutely. I'm not sure how he keeps a day job.
Oh, we know how
this could almost be his day job soon, I think.
We know how busy he is, just on the sheer fact of how long it takes him to reply to any messages.
Yes.
But I'm looking forward to that, because I'll pop in and have a cheeky browse on the Saturday. I am very much looking forward to watching, not necessarily playing. I don't know if I could do the playing either, but
hey, no, it's you get there. This is probably one of the better ones to come into, because it's a bit of a later start in the mornings, and I think the larger tournaments are always good to have, because you have the different skill sets to kind of level out after a couple of games, and so you do tend to play people that are similar skill to you. So it's always good for newer players to come along to bigger tournaments, because you'll get a couple of wins.
Yeah, it's not just the seasoned hardcore vets bashing each other. You get a real good mix, and I think the RSL doesn't open till 10 or something, so he has to go for a later start, which is always good, especially after Friday night of 7s. I'm really keen to hear how the 45-minute rounds go. You'll have to keep me updated on that one.
Yeah, I'll probably say it needs to be even faster. I think it should be 30 minutes.
I reckon we could do that. We'll talk. Speed round. Is there any social media, anything that you want to promote for yourself before we wrap up?
Not really. I used to go on. I used to stream on Twitch and do a few YouTube things and whatever else, but too busy now. My internet sucks. I don't even know if I could stream anymore. I've moved from where I had the good internet, which is unfortunate. But no, just shout out, play 7s. If you like Blood Bowl, you've played 11s, definitely give 7s a crack. It is different enough that you don't just feel like you're playing Blood Bowl. It's really fun. It's fast. It's snappy. It's good. And if you've never played Blood Bowl before, then start with 7s and work your way up.
Yeah,
if it intimidates you.
That is the other half of the joy. It's a awesome way to kick off. And it's so easy. It's so much easier to teach people 7s. I've tried both, and it's infinitely easier. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming along, having a chat. Again, well done on the weekend. Congrats for the taking it out. And
thank you.
What else do we need to say?
I think we can pretty much wrap it up there. I mean, we have said a few things. Obviously, Big V next Saturday. If you're around it is Ringwood, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ringwood area? Yeah. If you're around there, check that out for sure. We will be, I will be there. I'm not too sure about you, Jace, but the other thing is we've now teased on the social medias. Thoughtless Ball 3 is coming, and it's going to be completely different to anything you've seen before.
I mean, it's still probably going to be Blood Bowl 7s, but the rest of it can differ.
The rest of it, totally different.
For something that's going to be exactly the same, it's going to be so fucking different.
Pub
yes,
rules,
super
you know,
keen.
if you don't score a touchdown, you got to run around the table with your pants around your ankles.
Can we do that? See, can we? Absolutely no. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Rich would condone that. Yeah, so there's that. I know there's still a little bit of time to get into the Thoughtless Line People painting event as well. So quick shout out on that one. It's really, really simple. Paint a lineman, line person, line folk, any team. Post a picture of it unpainted, and then do the painting thing, and maybe take a picture of that one too. And we will gush over all of them appropriately, and give something away to somebody who did some cool stuff.
So that finishes end of August. So we've still got a couple of days, plenty of time to paint one model.
Shit tons. You can paint a whole 17 by then. Get onto it. And as always, the Patreons, we have those. Facebook, Spotify, Podbean, Twitch, Tweetbean, OnlyFans. And importantly, if you get us a chance, we'd love to always chat about anything hobby, Blood Bowl, although the Lego channel's been getting a feral flogging lately, in Discord. So jump into the Discord, come and just heckle. Always up for it. That is all the things I can think of.
That's it. Thanks once again, Liam. Really appreciate you coming on, mate.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Done. Up the quality by 1,000, guaranteed.
That's it from us. Laters.
Gotcha.
Gaming.